Good morning and welcome to Be Radiant, the place where we build and empower you to live a radiant life. And we do that by bringing important conversations, getting started so that we can begin to put some things into action so that we can live our best lives. And this month, the month of April, is Second Chance Month. It's an opportunity for the community, for society to begin to take a look at those who have been justice impacted and to see what role we can play in helping to bring our people back into our communities, reconnect them to the love and the opportunities to become productive, contributing citizens. I just wanted to give you a couple of statistics that, I've shared, but I want to share them again because they are so, when you hear them, it hits you in such a place. Right now, over 70 million Americans, 70 million Americans have been justice impacted. That means they have a criminal record of some kind. And I just want you to just let that sink in for a moment. That means 1 in 4 Americans has a criminal record and they're having to reckon with their past. And the community has to rise up and make sure that we are not a part of the roadblocks and the barriers that they face, especially those in the faith community. I wanted to share a scripture with you before I bring these brilliant, bright minds to our screen. And it's out of Matthew chapter 25, verse 35 through 36. And it says, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me." These are the words of Jesus, letting them know how they're going to be received at the pearly gates. And part of that, he says, I was in prison and you came to me. Some of those other places seem a little bit easier for us to receive, and we do it with with joy. But he says, I was in prison and you came to me. This matters to the Savior. And so if it matters to him, it matters to me. So I'm going to welcome my guest in. I'm going to give them an opportunity to tell you a little bit about themselves. And we're going to get this conversation going. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Look at all these beautiful faces. I love it. I love it. How are you all this morning?
Great.
Blessed.
Right. All right. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to, because, and I guess we're all seeing it the same way. I'm going to say ladies first with Sonia. Would you please just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to this conversation in this room this morning?
With Sonia Walker, and I am currently a social worker, a master level social worker at a very late day and age. I was a troubled youth. I am also a previously incarcerated individual, so directly impacted by the justice system. 10 years in federal prison. My son is now also doing time in a state prison in Texas. So I come to the table because of my past and also because of my presence, because even after 11 years of being free, I am fighting to be treated equally in the community, in society, as an individual, with family, with friends, and I'm my son who is going to follow in my footsteps. So that's
All right. Well, welcome, Wasonia. I love what you said. You said, I'm here because of my past, but also my present. Because a second chance, that's exactly what it means. It's recognizing that a person has a today and they also have a tomorrow. And how do we open the door to make sure that that tomorrow is everything that they're dreaming of? Thank you and welcome to the room. All right, let's go on over to Don. How are you this morning, Don?
I'm doing well. I am honored to be here. What brings me to the room is I am definitely a receiver of second chances. I was released from on parole in 2011, 12 due 10, sentence. And I had previously been in trouble, a few times before that. And I just couldn't, anyway, since I've been out, I've been able to accomplish a lot, and I look forward to sharing that to people to give them hope. But it is also a generational thing. My dad did a year in prison a while back, and so I have a 7-year-old daughter now. I'm gonna do everything I can to help her not have to go down that road. But I do know that anyone at any point in time can become a victim of the system, and I want to make a way for people to be received after they're released.
Absolutely. Welcome to the room. And you're speaking my language, Don. When you're able to say, you know what, that was the past. Mm-hmm. This generation, the generation that is coming after me, they are going to be the generation that says, I will not be affected by what used to happen. I always say, I kind of call it drawing a line in the sand and letting the devil know, hey, not another further, as my mama used to say, not another further will you go. All right. I love it. Welcome to the room, Don. And Mr. Tim, tell us a little bit about what brings you to the table this morning.
Well, I'm Tim Wright, and what brings me to the table, to the room, is that I'm a advocacy coordinator for CASA, which CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. We help children that are in foster care to have an advocate when they go to court. They have somebody by their side to speak for them, to be an advocate for their needs and their wants in foster care. And also thinking about Don and Ms. Walker, how their personal stories, when I was younger, I got in trouble a little bit too. And that stain of getting in trouble and trying to figure out your future past when you're younger, you don't think about how and why, or you got people telling you different things of, oh, you pleaded this, don't do that, do this. You don't know anything about the system at all. So the struggle to gain your self-respect back, your self-esteem back, gain your get rid of that fear and depression of the mistakes you made, to try to heal yourself and then try to move forward in society without people thinking about your past. That kind of, I'm in here to help with coming up with some ideas and just bringing these stories out into the open.
Hey, right. All right. You know what, Tim, you said something, I gotta elaborate a little bit more. We had a young lady on here, Charlotte Garnes. Fantastic young lady, doing some great things out there as an advocate. And what she said is that she read a book, and I've been meaning to ask her to share the title with me, that it says that every American at some point in their day commits what would be considered a felony. And I'm like, oh my Lord. But she says, and you do it unaware. And so those who are justice impacted, it happen to be people that got caught in those things. And I even stopped and said, you know what? A lot of people today that are listening that could possibly try and pass judgment, probably they've taken something from their place of employment. you know, those pens and those staplers and those notebooks and yeah, y'all. That even. So we try to make things, you know, this is big and this is little, but the word of God says that a liar will have his place in the lake of fire. That's what woke me up one day, because I'm like, ooh, you know, I used to grade sins. He doesn't grade sins. And the same thing with crimes. We as a society grade sin, but I mean grade crimes, but crime is crime. And so we're here today to talk about second chances. So
Amen.
there are two on here that you guys have been directly impacted. Myself, I have family members that have been impacted by the system. And one of the things that I know can stand in the way of a person transitioning from incarceration back into society is the relationships that they have. Let's talk a few minutes about that. What are some pitfalls? And then we'll also look at what are some things that we can do to improve those relationships. But what are some pitfalls that people face coming out of a prison system as far as relationships are concerned?
Well, I'll say for the younger youth, some of the pitfalls is that when they get out,
Well,
they don't have anybody to go to.
Sorry about that. Tim, so Tim, if you want to go, you said that a part of it is that they don't have anyone to turn to. Okay.
Right. When they get out, they may have family members and they may not have family members that are willing to take them back. And pretty much if they've been in there past a certain time, the system is not going to allow them to, you know, be in foster care or be, you know, have all those other incentives. So they have to rely on somebody that's a family member that can take them in because they have nowhere to go. And what you try to do is set it up for them so that they can have somebody when they're going in. But usually when they come out, it's about trying to find family members who are willing to take them in if they have nobody else.
Wow, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So, especially if they're already a part of the foster care system, you know,
Right.
So they already had that instability as far as the family was concerned. Anyway, wow.
Right.
Which one of you were about to say something?
Yes, I apologize. I think there's a delay on my computer, but yes, I just wanted to say kind of the same thing, but what I am finding more and more with just my situation and just in reaching back into the, you know, prison system, trying to be an advocate for people who are coming out is kind of the same thing as Mr. was saying, is there's not always a strong support system. So everybody doesn't go in. I did not go in with a strong support system. I did not come out with a strong support system. And the focus on coming out and being and believing that you're going to have a second chance is thinking you're going to have a strong support system. I was told a lot of things in going through re-entry classes, but those re-entry classes did not include the relational piece that was vital to my success. And it didn't prepare me for being rejected from my own children. It did not prepare me for being rejected from the few people that I thought were family members that would support me. It didn't prepare me for inclusion or not that rejection from just the stigma of having a past. It did not prepare me for that. They stay out of trouble, you know, and that's it. No other support system for that social emotional piece that comes with relationships was not there. And that needs to begin inside of prison or inside of the juvenile system. It's to start inside. You can't wait until you release a child or and say, okay, well, what about your relationships or what about your support? It needs to begin on the inside. Mentors need to be in place on the inside while people are doing their time to help them build the relationships. And if they don't have the relationships, just help them prepare for not having a relationship.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's
I got something else to say to that, but I want to wait till Don goes first.
Go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
All right. So I appreciate y'all sharing. I actually have a lot to contribute to this particular conversation because I was a child who my mother struggled with some issues, and my father also did as well, alcoholism and addiction, and even some mental health issues. They separated when I was like 1, and after a couple of years of an unstable household, I ended up in group homes and foster homes, my family would get custody of me for a little while. They'd get custody of me for a little while, but then, they just weren't prepared to raise a child. And so anyway, by the time I was, once I was 9, my grandparents from Georgia got me and moved me down here. And, I lived with them for a year. Then my dad went to treatment for a year. And then I started living with my father. And we have a beautiful relationship today because he was able to get sober to be in my life. But that doesn't take away all of the things that happened leading up to that point. And I can remember so many times as a child feeling alone and lost, and I just needed direction. Like I would go to school, and I was fairly talented or intelligent, but I just didn't have anyone to really take me under their wing. And now I know it was love that I needed. I actually needed love. And I just went through so many years like that. So by the time I reached a certain age, I was kind of hardened, like no one was coming in my circle. It was just me doing my thing. And that's how most of my relationships were based, is that I wasn't going to let anyone know me to love me. So whenever I started getting in trouble and I made it into prison, like was spoken earlier, there are some programs in there. And I went to jails a few times first. Like I worked my way up. Like I went to juvenile, and then longer periods in jail, and then long period in prison. So I even went to a probation detention center in between there. But finally it got to the point where, whenever I was getting released, family during those shorter sentences, they was like, all right, we encourage you to do the right thing, but they would stay back and stay leery of me, essentially. But after I was in for years, it kind of broke them down. And God bless them, because time does damage not just the person in there, but the ones who care about them as well. If you're fortunate enough to have that. And when it says that you came to visit me when I was in prison, the ones going to visit, it is a painful experience a lot of times. But whenever I got out, there was things that I needed: housing, like a safe place, like brother Tim was saying, and a family that could trust me, or at least learn to trust me. And a lot of times I noticed, because I work with other guys and I mentor other guys, there's not a safe house for them to go to. Whenever they ask you if you have a house you can go to without drugs and guns, a lot of the times the answer is no. So people have to go to a halfway house or a safe place. And their families were usually 90% of the time the ones who were with them when they were committing the crimes originally. So it's a lot of times best for them to learn to establish relationships outside of their family, which is extremely difficult. And I don't want to take up all of the time, but I could really talk about this. So what I had to learn to do for myself, because when I got out, my family didn't necessarily trust me, but they were willing to do whatever it took to help me out, because I had been in for so long. And I got involved in like a recovery program. I got involved in church. I started getting involved in things that would counter the type of lifestyle that I used to live. And so those are relationships I built, getting back to relationships.
Absolutely. So, and you made some very key points there. They have to learn to trust you. And we say again, but sometimes because the betrayal of trust as is seen starts happening at such a young age, that they need to learn to trust you, especially as the new adult that you are. So, wow, relationships really matter. And the thing you just said too is you have to have a place where it is crime free and no guns or drugs or alcohol in those places. And a lot of times the people you were with before are the people that you say, hey, that's where I got to go. And they were a part of why I'm here. Oh man, talk to that for a minute, guys. What's on you? I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead. I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Well, what I was gonna add after Ms. Walker went, I wanted to wait until Don went because I know he was gonna have something really good to say too. Yeah. But what I've noticed and what I've heard and felt from a lot of brothers and sisters that have been in prison is that it's about survival for them while they're there. It's about, am I going to get out of here alive? And then once you survive there, you have to come out and try to survive back in the real world. And the adaptation from that life of having to always have eyes in the back of your head to going out into the real world is so strange and different. And it's almost like coming into a whole new world again. And going back to what Don said about having somewhere to go, you wonder why we don't have more places built. While we're building apartments and we're building all these complexes, why not let's build a place where people can go that are transitioning out of prison? And there's monies for that, but all these monies are being used to actually build more prisons, to keep more people in.
Wow.
So use some of that money to build transitional apartment complexes for these people who are trying to get out. Their means of hiring people to watch over these it's not a prison, it's a place where people can go to transition. They get jobs, they get training. This is what we're missing. And then you want people to be back in society and be successful in society, but you're not giving them what they need to be successful. You got people in prison in here for like having a small amount of marijuana. They're not selling drugs, they just had it on them. So now they got something that's on their record. When you got people over here in another state just smoking away and nothing's happening to them, and they're not going to prison for it. So
people getting wealthy, selling it.
Right. People getting wealthy. So all this money that we're using for to build prisons, we could be using that money to start shuttling people out and giving them opportunities. And Don, I'm sorry, man, that I feel like you've been through a lot of things in your past, and like as you were speaking, I was seeing some of my own kids that we work with now. As you were talking, I'm like, yeah, I know that kid, I know that guy, I know that teenager, I know that adult. I like every stage you spoke. I saw a kid that I have known in that same position. And really, you said one thing about being alone and lost, but you were alone and lost and didn't even know that you were alone and lost until a little time later in life, and then you were like, that's what the problem was.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody that was there that understood where I was coming from, because we all have that inside of us. But when you are getting in trouble because of it, it's a different story. It's a whole different game.
Absolutely. I know I look at some of the teenage girls that I've mentored, and I stop and I hear your story. It's because I have to remind them, hey, I'm not that person. It's like they see you as the person that let them down before. And so before they even give you a chance to talk to them or even break down a wall, they've already shut you out and said, nope. I don't want to hear it. And like you said, it's because you don't even know how to be loved. But Don, I want to let you know that's not just people that end up in the prison system. That's people like me. I had to do just what you said. I had to go looking intentionally for people that I was willing to give them an opportunity to love me. And I went as you said, to the church, because I'm like, surely there's somebody there. There's somebody there. So I love that you said you intentionally went looking for those redemptive relationships, and that's what you have to do. I love that, Tim, too, about using that money to begin to put transitional housing into place, because that's one of the biggest issues. With Sonia, can you speak to that about coming out of a system? Like you said, you kind of, they tell you one thing, but you find something totally different. The housing situation, there are so many that are homeless that are coming out of the prison system. Kind of speak to that.
Well, I want to speak to the housing situation, but I also wanted to connect all of the pieces. So you have relationships, you have support system. Don mentioned building trust, and then we have I'm coming out, whether I'm a child that's transitioning out of foster care and I need somewhere to go, or whether I'm an adult coming out of prison or coming out of jail and I need somewhere to go. All of those things are connected together. You can't talk about one without talk about another. And like Don, I don't bring up everything in my past because there's so much. But I've done the foster homes, I've done the group homes. I was abused as at the age of 9, sexually abused. So you talk about trust. What is that? What is trust? And so I'm not thinking about building trust with anybody. You know, I'm not even thinking that that's important. Like, you know, even going into prison, that wasn't important to me, and coming out of prison, it wasn't a focus, because my brain at the age of 9 was damaged. There was trauma. And so we have to talk about the trauma. Don experienced trauma. I experienced trauma. The kids that you work with, Mr. Wright, they have experienced trauma. Their brains are not developed enough to understand that I need to build trust, and I need to I need to learn how to trust people, and I need to learn how to wait and be patient for somebody to trust me. My brain didn't understand that. These kids' brains can't understand that. Most individuals that are coming out of prison, I've done drugs, I've done, alcohol, I've had different addictions over the years. And so coming out of prison, I had been in prison 10 years and I was clean and sober, but my brain was still traumatized. So I had to get professional help to work through those issues, and the love of Christ and the healing and the deliverance of Jesus to help me through that process. But we're not talking about that, because only thing people are talking about, the system is talking about, you need to do A, B, C, and D. And if you don't do that, you're going back. And our families, most of our families, I don't know about Don's family, but my family still won't talk about the trauma. They refuse to talk about it. They refuse to acknowledge it. They still see me as that little girl that was acting out, getting in trouble, running around, doing whatever, having babies, doing drugs, and then went to prison. That's how my family still sees me, because they don't even understand the trauma. So how can you expect people to understand my story, Don's story, or any of these stories when they refuse to see the trauma, they refuse to look. And that's one thing I love about social work, is because when I'm dealing with people and children and situations, I'm not looking at just the situation. I'm looking at what happened to mom, what happened to dad, what happened to you as a little girl or a little boy, what's going on in your environment, what type of environment are you in? Unfortunately, when I came out, I came straight out the halfway house. Whether I had a job or whether I had a place to stay, when the halfway said your 90 days is up, your 90 days is up. So if I did not have a place to stay, guess what? I'm homeless. I know people who have come out and didn't have a place to stay. They ended up in bad relationships. They ended up with family members who were doing drugs, doing alcohol, doing whatever, because they like, I have to have somewhere to go. And so we make decisions on survival. And so again, I go back to what happens when you're doing time. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to get educated about what's really going on, because nobody wakes up to be an addict. Nobody wakes up and decides that I'm going to rob a bank and go to prison today, or I'm going to go, sell 5 kilos and go to prison today. We don't wake up with that. There's something that pushes us to that place. And so let's talk about what happened to get me to this place, and how can we fix that and look at the whole system, and then and fix the gaps, fill in the gaps, fill in the spaces. That may not be with family. That may not be with people who even look like me.
Right.
But it has to be, somebody has to be willing to help do that work and help get that part communicated so we can fix the whole picture. And housing is a major issue. Housing is a major issue with men, with women. I know of I've been in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, and there's not Savannah doesn't even have a state halfway house. It has a federal halfway house, but where do they go after the federal halfway house? There's no transitional centers after that. So if I gotta go in 90 days, where am I going? Where am I going?
Now, you just raised a point for me, because, and I plead ignorance here. I thought if you didn't have somewhere that was concrete to go, that sometimes they end up sending you back to the prison system. Is that correct? Or
No, that is not correct.
Okay.
If you have to have a plan before you come, so you have a potential place to go. But that doesn't mean that place is safe. So you have to have an address that says, like on your packet, your case manager, writes, like I had to have an address that say, once I got out the halfway house, I'm going to this place. But by the time you get out and you get out of the halfway house, that's not guaranteed that you go to that place. But by then, you're at the halfway house. The halfway house is not going to keep you past that date.
Wow. And Tim, now as a probation officer at one point, when you're dealing with young, and it was with juveniles, when you're dealing with young people in those situations, what do you do if it's like, hey, we've gone through this little transition, I have nowhere to go? My auntie, who told me she was going to let me come and live with her, decided that, she don't want me around Pookie. So she's, her little sweet Pookie, who probably is the reason, you know what I mean? So, how did you deal with that as a probation officer when a person was in that situation and not able to transition?
Well, as a probation officer, we would have to start when we knew that they were, let's say we had a kid that was committed to like 2 years of being with, let's say, DJJ, or, just in the system itself. Before they get out, we have to start transitioning them, having a transition plan to where they're going to go, what they're going to do. So we come up with different ideas about what they can do. And one of those would be like, Job Corps. Some of those would be the military school, right down the street at the Army base at Fort Stewart. Or there would be some relative that would be an aunt or uncle that would say, yeah, I'll bring him in. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best place, but that's a place for them to go. But there is a transitional period where we're sitting down and we're coming up with all the plans or ideas of where they could go. And usually, from my perspective, I'm always going for the military aspect, the place where they're going to have some type of discipline. They're going to have some type of training, some type of learning going on, because a lot of them are not in school, or they're behind in school. So you want them to go somewhere where they have an opportunity to get their GED or get their high school diploma in some way, shape, or form, have some type of training, get in some type of program where they can automatically get a job when they finish that program. But see, for the younger children, there's so many things in place now for the younger kids, and we're teaching them now how to take advantage of those different things. But for the older youth, that are older young men and women, those options are not really there like that once they turn like 21, 22. Not there. But for the younger kids, now we have so many other options for them if we can really dig into their past, of course, and find more relatives. But there are opportunities for them to go places and achieve something still, if like Ms. Walker said, if their minds can be put into the right frame of understanding that this is for you, this future is for you, we're here for you, because it's that trust. Do you trust your probation officer to help you? Does he really care about what happens to you? Is he really on your side, or he's just trying to get this case closed quickly? You know, and I made it a point to always let my kids know I care about you no matter what, if I didn't work this job, I still care about you as a person.
Yeah.
Because kids know when you're faking.
They know.
And when you're not being a true person to what they know, you're just getting your paycheck, and they know you really do care. So even, you know, you want to have people trust you to know that if I was telling this to my own son, if I had this information and my own kid was in this situation, I'd be telling them the same thing. So trust me when I say, if you do this, you're going to be successful. I got your back. And for adults, it's harder to get them to trust in that way, because they feel like they have to be in survival mode all the time. And so in adults, you know, they know that people lie to them. They already know that the system will lie to them to keep them incarcerated longer, or not let them on, you know, keep them on probation longer than they should be. I've already done 5 years. Why am I on probation for another 2 years? Like, you know, and and this is for a low level crime that y'all got me on. So now I'm fighting and struggling to maintain some type of real life situation for myself, and it seems like the system is making it harder. So you become resentful, and you become agitated with the adult world as an adult. And so now you're trying to figure out, what can I do to make myself feel better, get what I need, because now I don't really care what happens to anybody else except me.
Wow. You know, and Don, I want you to kind of chime in, but I was reading some information, and it just says, in addition to widespread social stigma, it says there are more than 44,000 documented legal restrictions on a person with a conviction. I said 44,000 legal restrictions. So now that I am quote unquote free, I'm not free. We create almost a second prison because now, I mean, employment, I got to say that I have a felony. So 9 times out of 10, unless that's a really enlightened employer, I'm not going to get the job. If I put on my application for an apartment that I'm a felon, that I have a felony, you know, the person is like, they're going to come up with some excuses as to why the apartment is no longer available. You know, so there are 44,000 legal restrictions. I'm like, good God, how do you even begin to get your life back after a situation like that? And to be put in a second prison I can only imagine that is mind shattering. Don, just kind of speak to that if you don't mind.
All right. Yeah, I want to.
And anything else you want to say, just if you've heard something, chime in.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak. So I don't want to keep it really dark. I like to bring hope to people, and it does get really dark whenever you start looking at getting out of prison or even jail, or, you know, the foster system, or, you know, anywhere, and you feel like people are out to get you, because there is a survival mode that we go in. You know, the psychologists have called it fight or flight mode. for a long time now. And that's what we get stuck in, even before we go a lot of the time. I look back over my life and the people that I hung out with and the situations I ended up in because of that trauma that Ms. Walker was talking about. I was attracted to people who were also, had experienced a lot of trauma. And I got involved with people who, they were like in a gang and, that kind of stuff. And anyway, I was always attracted to the streets and to those kind of people because they were the only ones that I knew what I was getting. The ones who I originally was supposed to trust when I was a small child, they were the ones that hurt me and lied to me the most. So I went with the people who I can see and I know what I'm going to get, and that's what I want to be. And anyway, I went down that road, and while I was, incarcerated, there is a survival mode. Like I got involved in a lot of different, I would go to classes and school and, whatever I could do to try to get involved, to try to take up time. But when it comes down to it, looking back over the years, you're really just doing time. You can get busy doing a lot of different stuff, but when it comes down to it, you're not doing much more than the person who's just sitting in their cell. Like just keeping it real. I did get a couple of college credits, but I mean, come on, like you add up the years and that doesn't make much of a difference. But anyway, I don't want to totally talk down, because there were some programs I got involved in, but it falls back to the people who were teaching and facilitating them. That's what matters. It's not the system itself. It's the people who actually cared. Like Tim was saying, the ones who you could tell, all right, this person's here because they want me to have a better life. They suit up and show up and come into this prison every day because they want to teach us how to live better. And, that started giving me hope when I would see that. And so once I got out in the survival mode, mentality of if I don't take care of myself, ain't nobody else going to do it. It does make it difficult. But I learned over a period of time, only by the grace of God, that I had to trust other people to help me. So I started asking for help. And the good thing is that I'm not the first person that was released in prison. It's been going on for a while. Anyway, I was able to get a lot of different help from different people. There's not a lot of resources out there now. There used to actually be, I didn't have to go to one, but I can remember over the years, there were halfway houses. They've gradually shut down funding to all these things. And they even shut down, before I got off probation and parole, they had started shutting down the offices to the probation and parole officers. They were working out of their cars. Like there was no office left for me to report to. So a lot of people aren't aware of all that. But
wow. So I mean, because they can kind of show up anytime, anyway, anyhow, right? Yeah. I know my nephew came to live with us after being released, and the probation officer almost beat him there.
Yeah. They're just in their car riding around with their bulletproof vest on, checking up on people all the time. That's what they do now.
I wanted to express a little bit about what what we were really saying when you said that when you come out of prison and you're still in prison part.
That second prison.
I sometimes believe that people who are in prison, when they come out, they're in the prison of what they can't do. But the people who haven't been in prison, they're in a prison of denial about everything else, whereas the people who are getting out of prison are awakened to all the foolishness that we have been digesting in society. They haven't been exposed to all the things that we are digesting and becoming okay with. So when you get out of prison, like you're always on 9 on everything, whereas the rest of us are walking around like, oh well, everything's good. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, you just reminded me of something when I got a little off, but you are right. So whenever whenever I got out, I can speak from my experience and from other people that I know. There's, I won't, it is kind of like a second prison, but it's really just, like Tim was saying, kind of an opening of my eyes, because by being cut down to just the very basics, that I need to survive, and everything that I own being in a box that's like 2 foot tall by 1 foot wide, basically. You learn what you need in life and what you don't need. So it's kind of like these people that are spending all this money to learn how to live a simple life. Like that's essentially what it is. I became a minimalist by the product of being in prison. Yeah,
Don, that might be your next business, is to have, teaching them how to live the minimalist life.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Apparently, there's money in it. People are making good money in that.
But so that's, again, before I forget, that's what the thought that I was grasping at is the prison of our mind. So we do end up in a place where, with trauma, we continue to relive that trauma over and over. And in the situations that I was exposed to, I mean, I've seen people, there's some violence that takes place in prison, in case no one is aware. I did see a lot of violence, and some people that I cared about were sometimes the aggressor, sometimes they were the victim. People that I would talk to and fellowship with, and because things just, when you have a group of men together for a long period of time, they pop off. So anyway,
I see what Tony is saying. Women too.
yeah, and women. Oh, I've heard the women can be worse, but I don't know. I can't speak on that one.
All trauma. That's trauma.
Oh yeah. So anyway, with humans, but whenever we get out, we have the prison of our mind, and it's a process of learning that people can help me, and also being willing to receive it, but also being hopeful. Being able to give someone the hope is what matters, because I look at, as long as I felt like I could never get a job, guess what? I wasn't going to get a job.
You weren't getting a job.
But whenever I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to get a job. And I started working, like, people would pay me cash, because I had a good job when I first got out. I actually had a job working for Camping World. A friend of mine got me a job there, and I was working there for going on 2 months. And then finally my paperwork, they called me into the office. They really liked me. They were talking about promoting me already. And I mean, they were letting me drive their like $250,000 campers from North Carolina and back between lots. Like, it was a lot of responsibility for somebody who just got out of prison. And they called me into the office and said, "We're sorry, we got to let you go." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, paperwork just came back from corporate. We appreciate you being honest, but they said that it's too big of a risk to have you here."
Liability.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. And you're thinking, my goodness, I've already been doing it and proving to you that I am trustworthy. Wow.
So that was that kind of hurt me for a little while, but then I like I said, I started getting jobs working with other people, and I gradually just kind of worked my way, to where now I've been with this company a little, over 2.5 years, doing plumbing, and I ended up working for myself for a lot of time. I know, a skilled trade. Yeah, that's right. They need more skilled trade schools for people coming out of prison, is what I'm talking about.
Do you know how much when we call the plumber, I almost shudder, because I'm like, I'd rather call the doctor, my doctor, than to call the plumber.
That's right.
Well, just call me. They charge.
I'll help you out. Yeah, but anyway, so I'm extremely grateful for how my life is today. I have a 7-year-old daughter. Since I've been out of prison, I've been able to get married and divorced. Just saying, I've experienced both. I do have a beautiful 7-year-old daughter who I'm actually going to be taking to Disney in June. I never went for myself, so it's like a dream come true. Yeah, I'm so excited about that. I've been able to have a valid driver's license for years. I don't have to worry when the cops get behind me. Even if I do get pulled over and get a ticket, which I did actually finally get one after in Garden City. It's been a while, but I got one like a couple weeks ago.
Welcome to my world.
Right. So I was able to vote for the first time because I'm off probation and parole.
Yes.
And that was it's a good feeling knowing that your vote does count, you know. And I was also encouraging everybody I knew to vote. I think that we had a record turnout, this last voting cycle, and it's pretty awesome. It's really awesome. But I've been able to get involved in things in the community, like community activists, community support. I'm a part of Hello Neighbor. If you don't know what Hello Neighbor is, please check it out and do a little spot real quick. HelloNeighborSAV.com. It's a community building organization where essentially what we do is we want to unite all of the neighborhoods, the neighborhood alliances around Savannah, and ultimately a larger area. But to begin with in Savannah, because the thing that keeps everyone down is division. If they keep us divided, then they keep us conquered. So if we unite, if we all come back together, then we're able to get a lot of stuff done. So yeah, please go to HelloNeighborSAV.com and sign up to, just kind of be a part of it. Anyway, my life is really full today. I'm honored to be here. I feel like I've spoken a few minutes, so I'm going to pass it on, but I'm really honored to be able to share this time with y'all. Tim, if there would have been someone like you around whenever I was a kid, I honestly believe my life could have been different. And
I want to ask y'all a question real quick, both of y'all. Is that, and we've all had this feeling in different ways, but for you guys, I know it's a stronger emotional feeling of when you do have that success, when you have that success you want outside of that life that you lived. Is it like being born again? Like you're born into this new self, this new experience of life?
Go ahead. You want to say, Ms. Walker?
I think it is. I think it is. It is definitely. It's almost as I feel like I'm still learning to live free.
That's right.
I'm learning a new way of living because anything that I relate, and that's not easy. And I think Don probably can agree that it's not easy. It's not easy because people will remind you and society will remind you and situations will remind you. Sometimes the people who should know you best will remind you of when. And so, but you have to daily look at yourself in the new light, look at yourself the new way, separate yourself. I talk about my past, but I'm not my past. And so you have to continue to do that, is to look at yourself, learn how to live new. I'm learning how to, I have white friends, I have black friends, I have Chinese friends, I have Hispanic friends. I'm not closed in this box. Little things make me humble. And I wanted to touch on this before we get ready to end, but Tim talked about hope. And so even though I talked about the disparities, and even though I talked about the gaps, and even though I talked about the things that are not right, there is hope. I took a program during my 10 years called Life Connections. It's only in one prison in Carswell, one federal prison in Carswell, as far as I know. But it's called Life Connections. It's a faith-based program, and it's 18 months long. And nobody thought that I could finish that program because I wasn't the nicest person. I didn't mess with people, but I didn't deal with people because of trust. I didn't trust you. Don't bother me. I won't bother you. And so nobody thought that I could get in that program and make it. But when I finished that program and graduated, I ended up being most changed. That program, that was one of the certificates I got about 4 recognitions throughout that program at graduation, but one of them was most changed. I wasn't expecting that. It blew my mind, but it let me know that I can change. It let me know I'm not my past. It let me know that I'm not my circumstances. I'm not the things that happen to me. I'm not what people said I am. There is hope. I had people even on the day that I left prison saying, you'll be back. And I said, the devil is a liar. I will not be back. You know, I told them, I said, I won't. And I saw people coming back. And on the day that I left, they was like, we'll see you in a few months. And I said, no, you won't see me. I was determined. One of my professors, teachers in Life Connections, he told me, he said, to whom much is given, much is required. I had heard that scripture, but I really didn't get it. I get it now. I didn't get it then, but I wrote it in my Bible. I still have the Bible. This is the Bible that I wrote it in, and I still have it from prison. And I know what that scripture means now. But like Tim said, everybody's not the change. Not the same. There are people in prison. It matters who's teaching the classes. It matters who you connect to. Find one person who you can connect to who believes in you. It may not be family. It may not be friends. It may not be wife or husband or whoever, but find one person who believes in you, and that's your hope. Because if one person believes in you, you can make it. And I'm living proof. And Tim is living proof that we can be successful after prison.
Absolutely.
And that's the hope that I want to see it.
Also something I wanted to say, those people who are you see how the people who are working in the prisons, how their mind is actually altered as well, because they're in prison too.
Yeah.
They're working there, but they're in prison too. So why are they saying you'll be back? Why not say, I don't want to see you again?
There you go.
It's a mindset.
You got you.
Just real quick, I was gonna say, I do feel like I've been reborn in a lot of ways, and I can't add a lot to what Ms. Walker said, but once you have your mind made up that you ain't going back, just don't. No matter what, I ain't going back. And but I do know that it's only by the grace of God that I'm able to sit here today. I'm really grateful for that. But there are times when I do look back at my life and I'm like, man, how did I get here? Like out of all the people I know and the direction my life was going in, and I ended up having a good life today and a lot to be grateful for. And it's taken a lot of work. It has not been easy. Miss Walker said that it has not been easy. There's been sacrifices, there's been pain, but it's people like y'all who have helped me to live a better life today. So
elevation, y'all, elevation. Your life is always. Look at your life in a year ago. It's probably better than it was. As long as you're on that track, it's gonna be better than next year.
Absolutely. Second chances to me, though we're talking about those who have been justice impacted and those who have been formerly incarcerated, we all need a second chance. We all, but the word of God says that such were some of you. When he begins to talk about the things that we've been delivered from, the places that we've walked, and he said, sometimes we get so far removed from what we used to be that we can't see how to reach back and help someone else. So today, you two have done that. You have seen clear enough to say, I want to be a part of reaching back and saying, hey, this is the way forward. Don says he does it. He's a mentor. He helps others. And I know that my sister Wasonia is working specifically as a social worker with programs helping those who have been formerly incarcerated to help them make that transition. And this hour went way too fast. We have so much more to say. I see a panel in the future, and there are many people watching that's not showing up for some reason. My screen is not rolling my comments up, so I got to work on that. It's a technical issue, but I just want to let those people out there. Julius has made some amazing comments. He says, once paid, a debt is no longer a debt. The only one that can stop you is you. That is so true and deep. I mean, it's deep. That goes into the very heart of the matter. And that is why we're here. Don, I want you to know a very good friend of mine, Kevin Terrence Brown, who is the mayor of Buena Vista. He says, proud of you, brother. He's proud of you.
Thank you.
And with Sonia, you have some admirers on here just saying that they are so grateful for the woman that you have become and are becoming. And Tim saying thank you for being an advocate. So I wanted to be able to roll those comments up, but for some reason, like I said, my comments aren't coming over. I want to thank each and every one of you. You've given us food for thought. And like I said, we've got to come back. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do this. So just be listening now. I'm going to bring you back one-on-one so we can have some one-on-one time and just talk a little bit more about your story, talk about some things that we can do to help in our community. And I always like to end by letting you know, with this being Second Chance Month, if you have not reached out in some way to let someone who has been formerly incarcerated or currently incarcerated help be a part of the relationships that make a difference. Help be a part. The church, if you're out there and you're a pastor listening to me today, you better have something in place to begin to help transition. If it's bringing someone on your staff that can help with counseling, if it's bringing someone on to talk to your church about setting a culture so that people who are formerly incarcerated that walk through your doors feel welcomed. You know, that's a big deal. If you've got somewhere you go and you feel like, oh, once they know who I am, I won't be welcomed. Pastors, that's a big responsibility. Employers, that's a huge responsibility, setting a culture that people feel that they really have a second chance. So thank you guys. If you will hang out in the backstage for a minute, I want to talk to all of you guys. I'm going to go ahead and go ahead. Yeah. Last words. Any last words? Go ahead.
One last word. For those who want to be involved with helping children and become a CASA, and help the young kids while they're young and try to be an advocate for them, please contact CASA at savannahcasa.org and get involved with these children's lives. Find some time and get involved with children's lives. We can save them from the beginning, so we don't have to end up in situations where they end up going to prison in the first place.
Absolutely. And I want to say savannahcasa.org. Make sure I spelled all that right, Tim. I'm a CASA. That has been one of the greatest joys of my life, is being a CASA. And I always stop, I stop and I think, man, how do I fit this into my life? But guess what? It's one of the joys of my life. I enjoy talking on the phone. I will say this. I had a conversation with my CASA child. I don't know what you would tell me, Tim. What do I say?
Your CASA child, your child.
My CASA child. That's my CASA child. She's mine. She called me. She was walking home from work one day and she's like, I'm walking home because my ride didn't show up. She says, will you talk to me on the phone as I walk home? So we talked the whole time she was walking home. That's the kind of relationship that we've established. So she's like, she didn't say, come pick me up. I would have done it, but she says, can you talk to me while I walk home? And we did. And so she'll call me sometimes. She'll call me to tell me about something that's going wrong, something that's going right, or just to say, you know what, today just is not the day. So become a part of someone's life to make that difference, to make a difference. All right. You guys have a last word you want to put in there before we go?
I just wanted to say thank you. I give God glory, honor, and praise for using my voice. That has been my main thing, is just, God telling me that he wanted to use me, and now allowing myself to be used. That's an honor, and to be a voice for so many other men, women, and children. And so thank you for this platform, and thank you for this time. And it was very nice to meet you, Mr. Don, and you, Mr. Tim.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Ms. Sonia, you work with a nonprofit, correct?
So I'm actually in the process of starting my own nonprofit. Helping Hearts Heal was started for women and girls who are victims of trauma or been impacted by the justice system. A part of that, one of the program is Project 810, which is going to be strictly reentry and going back into the prisons, being mentors, being volunteers, supporting those people as they begin to transition. So it's in the making. I have been operating as a nonprofit for about 3 years now.
All right, all right. So Helping Hearts Heal.
Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
so Helping Hearts Heal. You see, I say it's coming soon, so be looking out for it. And thank you guys so much. Yes, Don, do you have a last word that you'd like to leave with us?
I just wanted to thank you for the show, and the other guests and everyone who's out there in the world listening, everyone who may hear this message. And I just want to let you know that God loves you, and that I love you. That there is love in this world for you, and for those of you who have experienced love, I just want to keep encouraging you to keep giving it, because sometimes we can get wore down when we're helping other people, and sometimes it'll seem like, oh, they're just falling right into the category of what everybody thinks that they are. We just got to keep encouraging them, to keep encouraging people and keep lifting them up, and don't get wore out running this race. That's all.
Don't get weary in well doing. He says, for you shall reap if you faint not. Yeah. So, brother, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. I'm going to have a moment here, and then I will be letting you guys go today. I tell you, this has been rich, you guys. This has been rich. Second chances. Second chances. Remember, all of us needed a second chance. All of us had that moment in our lives where we had to make a decision about who we were going to be. And remember, the scripture we started off with today, I'm going to end with it. It says, for I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Let's be the link that Jesus is talking about in this scripture. Let us be the link in all of those areas, but definitely don't let us neglect that when I was in prison, you came to me. Thank you so much for being the best part of Be Radiant, where we build and empower you to live radiant lives. Have a blessed Saturday and go out there and make a difference today.